Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Truth Tracker. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to say thank you, everyone who tuned in to our very first episode on climate change. If you have not tuned in, feel free to go check that out. It's going to be under our channel, and I really appreciate everyone's support and everyone taking the time to watch it, and it definitely means a lot. So yeah, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate all the support, and yeah. So for our second episode today, we're going to be discussing vaccines, which have a ton of misinformation on it, and this is going to be kind of the way this podcast is going to work. We're going to tackle issues that have tons of misinformation within that overall field before we tackle other issues within the political field of America that also have some misinformation on it. And so yeah, today we're gonna have the same episode layout as the first episode, where we are gonna be busting 10 myths on vaccines before, getting into the importance of civic engagement. And so, that's gonna be the way today's episode is gonna work. And thanks everyone for tuning in today. And let's just get into it. So, our first myth for today regarding vaccines, which is a very important and prevalent topic within society and the realm of public health, is that vaccines are only effective for the short term and need frequent boosters to remain effective. Now, this may seem true at face value because while some vaccines do require booster doses to maintain immunity over a long time, many vaccines provide long-lasting protection with a single series of doses, right? And so therefore, this proves that, the need for boosters depends on, the disease, the vaccine type, and how long the immunity lasts. So I guess, for example, right, if you take vaccines for measles and polio, immunity for those can last for many years or even for life in some cases. While, for example, the COVID-19 vaccine, we needed to get pretty frequent boosters to make sure that our immunity was effective. And so I guess essentially the whole point is that booster doses are recommended for certain vaccines to maintain high levels of immunity, especially in the face of waning immunity or new variants. And so this kind of shows how this myth is wrong, as some vaccines do require boosters over time to maintain that effectiveness and immunity, but not most vaccines don't. And most vaccines are very effective in the long-term scale of things. And we received all this information from the CDC, as well as a book written by S.A. Plotkin and W.A. Orenstein called Vaccines Elsewhere, which was written in 2018. And yeah, so essentially that's going to be this first myth busted. And now the second myth is vaccines contain harmful levels of mercury. Now, this whole belief is surrounded on the idea that vaccines contain this certain compound called thimerosal, which does contain some level of mercury. However, it has gone under tremendous levels of safety screenings and testing, and it has to be certified by the FDA. And so therefore, the amount of mercury in vaccines even is incredibly, incredibly low and has no really large effect on your public health and is not harmful in any way. And this shows, simply put, that vaccines do not contain harmful levels of mercury. It is just a simple ingredient it's just a small amount that is used within the compound of thimerosal, which is used in vaccines. So that's really the only areas where mercury is even located in vaccines to begin with. And this amount is incredibly, incredibly small. So it has no way of really damaging your body or damaging your health in any way. And we received this information from the CDC as well as the FDA regarding thimerosal in vaccines and the levels of mercury within vaccines. So in conclusion, vaccines do not contain harmful levels of mercury at all and are actually quite safe, as they're tested repeatedly by the CDC and the FDA. Our next myth is that vaccines weaken the immune system. Now, this myth is actually, false, because vaccines actually strengthen the immune system. So most vaccines work by introducing a harmless version of the virus or disease that it's trying to fight, which helps stimulate the immune system to fight that very small and weakened disease without actually developing the disease. So what happens is when it's fighting that small portion of the disease, it helps gain immunity to that specific disease. So for example, let's say, let's say let's look at the flu disease to kind of illustrate this point, right? So when you receive the flu vaccine, the vaccine gives a very small dosage of the flu to your body that's often like harmless, and the body helps fight that off. And then, for example, when you do get per se infected with the flu, if you do get infected with the flu, it helps you fight that way better because the body's already used to it due to the vaccine. And so it helps, the immune system respond more effectively and rapidly when confronted with the disease that it's trying to fight, as the body's able to develop a memory of that specific disease and how to fight it in an effective and efficient manner. So instead of weakening the immune system, vaccines actually boost the immune system and help it perform in an effective manner. And we also got this information from the CDC and the FDA as well. Furthermore, the next myth is that natural infection is better than vaccination. Now, in theory, it can be argued that this, I guess, is technically true, as people can say how the immune system can fight off diseases through natural infection, and it's in a more natural manner than vaccinations. However, the thing with natural infections is that they can be very serious and severe and lead to very harmful complications, such as, long-term health issues with all these diseases, versus vaccines. They give you that same immunity, but they don't actually cause the disease, which therefore prevents you from having these severe health effects that would come through natural infections from these diseases. And so, therefore, if you look at diseases like measles and polio and whooping cough, these diseases can have serious consequences if you receive them through natural infection, versus if you get the vaccine against them, they can help you fight these diseases in a way more effective and efficient and safer manner. And so therefore, natural infection is not better than vaccination. And we got this information from the WHO, the World Health Organization, which is a very reputable organization. So you can see how all the sources that we've been using have been are factual and verifiable organizations that have tons of credibility within the public health realm. Our next myth is that vaccines are not needed because diseases are no longer common. Now, this is a really misleading myth, because the reduced incidence of many vaccines is actually a direct result of widespread vaccination, right? I mean, this can be seen with polio. Before the polio vaccine was created, polio was very rampant. But as soon as the polio vaccine was created, polio began to eventually die down and eventually was eradicated among the widespread population. And so this shows how vaccines help decrease diseases. And so even though diseases are uncommon, it's important that we still get vaccinations in order to make sure that these diseases never resurface ever again. Because essentially the way vaccines work among a large-scale kind of group is they end up creating immunity within the entire population. So when fewer people are vaccinated, it reduces this kind of herd immunity, which allows diseases like polio and measles to spread more easily. So therefore, this myth is not wrong. It actually is the opposite of what the current health standard is, which is that vaccines are needed because they help keep diseases on the low and eradicated from the population. And we got this information from the CDC as well. Our next myth is that vaccines are unsafe because they were made very quickly. And so this myth was kind of created for the COVID-19 vaccine, as the COVID-19 vaccine was created extremely quickly, I think in a matter of, a year or so. And so vaccine development, involves rigorous testing in multiple phases of clinical trials to ensure the safety of these vaccines, because you never want to, harm anyone with these vaccines. But if you look at the COVID-19 vaccine, for example, the reason it was created so quickly was because we were in a global pandemic and there was an unprecedented global collaboration, funding, and pre-existing research on similar viruses, and not by cutting corners on safety or any safety standard of that manner. So therefore, these vaccines are safe because even though they were made quickly, they have gone through multiple safety tests and clinical trials mandated by the FDA and the CDC, and the only reason they were made quickly was because of the global collaboration and the funding that was poured into these vaccines. So therefore, even though, for example, the COVID-19 vaccine was made quickly, it was still ultimately safe, which is proven when it was rolled out, and there were very few serious health complications because of the COVID-19 vaccine. And so therefore, this proves that this myth is wrong and that vaccines are in fact safe even if they are made quickly. And we receive this information from the FDA as well as the World Health Organization. So again, two very reputable organizations. And this kind of hits the head of misinformation in this kind of topic is where when you receive information, it's always very important to cross-check it to other sources and other verifiable and credible sources just to make sure that the information that you are receiving and consuming is accurate. So that way you can make your decisions in a very accurate manner. And so the next myth is that vaccines can give you the disease that they are supposed to prevent. Now, this myth is it's taking a certain phenomenon or a certain fact about vaccines way out of proportion. Essentially, most vaccines work through giving you an inactivated pathogen or a very weak form of the disease. And so these very small portions of the disease will not harm you in any way and instead stimulate an immune system response, which allows the immune system to remember how to treat that disease. And so therefore, when you get infected with the disease on a widespread scale, your body already knows how to fight it, and that helps you fight the disease in a much better manner. And so, in turn, they only give you a small portion or a very weakened portion of the disease when you first receive the vaccine, and it does not give you any other diseases of that nature, as well as like a disease. Like it doesn't give you the flu disease on like a widespread scale. It only gives you a very weakened portion of the disease when it's first given. And so therefore this myth is completely false, as they don't give you the disease in total. They just give you a very weakened portion of it that is often fought very way as the immune system fights it. And so this myth is not true. And we got this information from the CDC as well. And so the next myth is that vaccines contain dangerous chemicals. Now, vaccines do contain various artificial ingredients that are used to create and stabilize the vaccine, which help increase its effectiveness and ensure that it can be safely administered into people. Now, these ingredients have, such as, chemicals, are first off present in very small amounts and are well within the safety limits established by regulatory agencies such as the FDA. And furthermore, these vaccines are thoroughly tested for safety and efficacy, which shows how, even though vaccines do contain chemicals and artificial ingredients of that nature, they are very safe and they won't cause any, negative health effects, and they will in no way harm your body. Instead, it will help your body fight major diseases. And so, therefore, this myth is not busted, as any of the artificial ingredients it has are in very small amounts and are within the safety standards of regulatory agencies. So therefore, this myth is false. And we got this information from the FDA's regulation guidelines as well as the CDC. The next myth is that vaccines are only for children. Now, it's true that, most vaccines are administered for children, but that's only because, it's that the kind of new public health standard is that, we should give children vaccines in order to make sure they don't prevent or they don't, gain deadly diseases on as they progress through life. Now, vaccines are important throughout life, not just during childhood. Many vaccines require booster doses to maintain immunity, and some vaccines, in fact, are specifically recommended for adults. For example, if you take a look at the flu vaccine is recommended annually for adults to protect against seasonal flu strains. And so, there's also vaccines like a shingles vaccine, which is recommended for adults as they age and grow up. And so, therefore, those two examples kind of disprove this notion that vaccines are only for children and not needed for adults, as, adults do use many vaccines and booster shots of that nature. Furthermore, in the future, there are going to be new diseases that come up, and at that point, adults are going to need vaccines in order to counter those diseases. And so, therefore, that kind of disproves this fact that vaccines are only for children. They're very important for adults and people of any age for that matter. And we got this information from the CDC as well as the Journal of Internal Medicine. Our next myth is that you do not need vaccines if you are healthy. Now, being healthy does not eliminate the risk of contracting vaccine preventable diseases, because essentially vaccines are essential not only for the personal protection of ourselves, but also for public health. Because one of the big advantages of vaccines is that they contribute to this phenomenon called herd immunity, which is that it this idea that when vaccines are administered to a large, widespread population, they help protect individuals on a widespread scale who are unable to receive vaccines due to health conditions or age, of that matter. So therefore, healthy individuals do need vaccines, as they also still may carry and spread diseases, and so therefore vaccination is crucial for maintaining, community-wide protection. Furthermore, I mean, this can be shown in the COVID-19 vaccine. Most of us were still healthy. Most of us are healthy, but we still needed that COVID-19 vaccine in order to make sure that we were safe in protecting ourselves and others against the fight of COVID-19. And so therefore, you still need vaccines even if you are healthy, which disproves this myth. And we got this information from the CDC as well. And so, yeah, those were the 10 myths for today on vaccines. And obviously now we're going to get into our civic engagement aspect of our episodes that we do every week. And so essentially, with topics with misinformation like this, the biggest way to counter this kind of misinformation is to first off make sure you're receiving accurate and verifiable information from various reputable news organizations, but also to make sure that you vote in order to make sure you can fight for policies that do advocate for vaccines, because they are a very healthy. They're a very important way to increase the health among people and are necessary for the future of our population and humanity. And so here are just a couple benefits for voting, obviously, as the election in November of 2024 comes up. And so first is that voting ensures that your voice is heard in choosing representatives who will make decisions on your behalf. So when there are decisions related vaccines and public health, it is important that you vote in order to make sure that good, effective, and efficient policies that help advance vaccines are created among the representatives that you elect on your behalf. And so therefore, voting is very crucial in maintaining effective and efficient representation in all levels of the government. Another benefit is that voting helps address local issues such as misinformation, vaccines, and help drives community improvements. And so when you're able to vote, you can contribute to positive changes just by voting. And so, that's kind of a big reason why you should vote, is that it allows you to really impact your community on a very widespread scale. Another impact that is that it has a very strong effect on the policy created, as elected officials create and enforce policies that affect often various aspects of your daily life, such as public health, healthcare, and vaccines. And so therefore, it's extremely important that you vote in order to make sure that effective policies are created by our policymakers. The next reason why you should vote is that it allows you to hold your elected officials accountable. So therefore, you can help hold them accountable on issues such as public health, healthcare, and vaccines. And so when you vote, you're helping to ensure that leaders remain responsive to the needs and concerns of their constituents. And so, voting helps hold people in government accountable. And finally, the biggest reason is that one of the biggest reasons of voting is that it's a powerful way for you to express your opinions and make a difference. Simply by the act of voting, it can empower people around you to contribute actively to the governance and direction of your local community. And so that's such a big reason why you should vote, is because it allows you to feel empowered on your journey to becoming civically engaged and expressing your opinions and making a difference in your local community. And so, that is it for today's episode. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in today. And, make sure to always, the biggest thing from this episode is to understand that there's a lot of misinformation regarding vaccines. But, through actively seeking out correct and verifiable and accurate information, as well as being civically engaged in voting, we can help tackle this major issue. And so, that is it for this week, everyone. Thank you so much, and we hope you tune in next week for episode 3. Have a great day, everyone. Bye bye.